So what's an MMI and how do I prepare for one? I'm going to answer them in today's video. Hi everybody and welcome to today's video. My name is Charlotte and I'm a 4th year veterinary medicine student and I'm going to explain to you today how to prepare for MMI. So what are MMIs? MMIs are multiple mini interviews. Generally, they will have a set amount of stations that you need to go through and each station will be looking at something in specific. There might be prioritisation, there might be different skills they're looking at, they might be looking at how professional you are, they might be looking at your communication skills. Who knows what they're going to want? And every uni is going to be different. Generally, they'll have lots of different stations in a room and each station will have a different sound normally. So there might be a ding and you might have to read something for a moment. And then after that minute, they'll do another ting and you'll have to go to your station. And that's when the interview will begin. Then another ding will go and that'll be the end of your station, so you'll go to your rest chair, and in that rest chair you might have another reading project to do. Sometimes there's pictures, sometimes there's reading, sometimes there's something to prepare for, sometimes there's nothing. But let's get into some tips on how to prepare for these interviews. So my first tip today is going to be to know the current affairs in the general subject that you're interviewing for. So if it's veterinary medicine, then know what's going on in the vet world. My second tip would be to know the skills that you need for the job. So for veterinary medicine, you're going to need communication skills, teamwork, time management, empathy, all of these really important skills, and you're going to have to demonstrate them in the interview. Now somehow you're going to have to put these skills across in each and every station and to show that you have what it takes to be a vet or a doctor. Whichever career you're going for and whatever the interview is interviewing for, you need to personalise that to that particular interview. If it's medicine, it'll be very similar to veterinary medicine, or if it's some other occupation, think about the skills that you're going to need to be the best person for that job. It's really important to link these skills to work experience that you might have had and also demonstrate how you have these skills. So you can't just say I'm empathetic, you're going to have to show why and how you're empathetic. When have you demonstrated this skill? How have you got this skill? If you've seen it being used in the veterinary profession, why is it important to have that skill? You're going to have to show that you know all of this in the interview, and finding ways to bring work experience in will just make you shine. I am a massive advocate for showing that work experiences come in all the time so that you look like you've got loads of experience and that you look like you know what you're doing, you're dedicated already because you've got all of this experience lined up. I am a massive advocate for this and I think it's really important. Think of ways to test yourself on these skills as well. These interviews might be based, each station might be looking at a different skill that you have. You need to demonstrate this skill in each one. Think about it in the interview. When you're there, think about, right, what in this interview, in this particular station, what are they looking for? How do I bring this up? What have I already got? So it's really important to make a list in a book before you go into the interview. What skills do you have? When have you demonstrated it? And how are you going to make this come across in an interview? That way you've got a foolproof way of knowing what you can bring up and you're not thinking on the spot in the interview. You've already prepared what you're going to bring up and how you're going to demonstrate these things in the interview. That's amazing. That way you're going in and you're fully prepared and you know what you've got to bring up. Think of ways to demonstrate these skills with friends and family. Get something like a picture and have to explain to friends and family how to draw this picture. That's communication skills. That's also showing that you've got patience if they're doing it wrong. You can explain stuff, that you have a methodical thinking when you're telling them how to do it. It's a brilliant way of showing lots of different skills. And by doing that practice, you'll be prepared for a potential station. Similarly to this, my third tip is going to be to practice answering questions to a timer. Multiple mini interviews tend to be around the 5-minute mark. If you've got longer, great. But practice to a time that you think you're going to have the interview. If you know the time of the interview, even better, practice to that time. You will then know when you're roughly running out of time, how much time you've got to ace this interview and to get everything you want to mention into that time frame. But don't forget to not talk like a steam train going at full speed. Remember to stay composed, calm and clear when you're speaking. My fourth tip is going to be about dress code. You don't want to walk in there in jeans and a hoodie. That does not look good for an interview. You've got to make sure that you feel confident in what you're wearing, that you also feel professional, that you also feel great, because that will give you confidence. For my interview, I wore a trouser suit. I had some smart trousers, a smart top, and then a jacket to go on top as well. It looked really professional, and I had a few accessories just to dress it up a little bit. My next tip is if you have a group interview section to these multiple mini interviews. If you have a group section, remember everything you got taught in high school for oral exams. For me in school, I had loads of these exams. It might be different for you, but essentially you need to remember that it's a group task. You need to show that you can work in a team. You need to make sure that everyone is involved in this task. So if someone is quiet in particular, bring them into the conversation. Show that you can do that. Show that you have the skills to make sure that everyone is involved, that no one is left out, and that you're a real team player. Ask questions. Take a role. If you think that you need to take charge, then take charge. But also, it's really important to remember that you don't have to be the team leader. If you had everyone being a team leader, it'd be a shambles. You need someone to lead, and if that naturally comes to someone else, then let it naturally happen to them. In my group interview, I took a step back and I just analysed what was happening and asked a lot of questions. I was making sure that any decision that we made as a group was the right one by asking the right questions. That was my role. Find your role. Make sure that you're doing all these things. Don't ever cut across anyone. Make sure you listen and make sure that your body language is all correct, because they're probably looking at that as well. My next tip is going to be look at the university's social media. Look at what they're researching. The day of my interview, they posted something about cat kidney disease, and Lord and behold, it came up in my interview. Look at what they're researching, look at what they're currently looking into, because the person sitting there interviewing you might be the person that did that research, and they might question you on it. And if you know about it, or you know something about it, at least you've got somewhere to start off. They're not expecting you to be a ready qualified vet, they're just expecting you to know what's happening, and they'll get all the information out of you. What they're looking for, they will be able to drag that out of you. As long as you know roughly what's happening, you will be fine. It's really important to act professionally and know how to speak professionally. If you need practice at this, do it with friends and family, or a teacher if you can't do it with them. Ask for a session in your lunchtime or something. I'm sure they'll be happy enough to sit there for 5 minutes learning and practicing how to speak professionally. Look at YouTube videos. Look at how people are talking. Have some confidence behind you. Have some clarity in your voice. Make sure that you have plenty of practice doing this. And if you've got practice doing it, such as working in a shop, dealing with customers, great. Bring that up in interviews. They're brilliant skills that you have. But you need to make sure that in the interview yourself, you're demonstrating this. It's really important to look for events that might help you practice for MMIs. Some schools or organisations will run these things, and you have to look for them. They will not come to you and tell you what they have. Look on the internet, ask school if they know anything, ask the universities themselves if they know of any courses. I'm a student ambassador, and I've actually taken part in some of these courses to help students know what to expect in MMIs, and the uni itself arranged that for me to work. So they might know of courses coming up in your local area that you don't know about, or they might know of organisations in your local area that might be able to organise such a thing. So it's really important to do your groundwork and look for these MMI practice stations, even if they're not specifically for the course that you're going for, such as veterinary or medicine. They might be a general one, but it'll give you some good practice. And last but not least, have some survival techniques. In an MMI interview, it's going to be stressful. I remember being stood outside my interview before I went in to sign in, being nervous as anything, having a little breakdown with my mum. And it was really scary. But I had some techniques like mindfulness techniques. I had different techniques such as when I was in the interview itself, in the break that I had in between the interview, we had little things going around the room. It was in the anatomy room. And what I'd do is I'd count the ribs on an animal or something. Finding little techniques like this will be really useful. My next video on MMIs will actually be talking about survival techniques, so stay tuned for that. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that it helped. Any questions, hit them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!